What's up everyone? Hope you're all having a lovely day. We are 4 days out from fight day. Currently water loading. It's 6:30 in the morning. This will be my first litre of the day and you get through 10 of these bad boys. So while I'm drinking this first one, I'm going to be chatting about some of the things that's been happening lately, some of the things to expect from a fight week. So usually at this point in fight week, I still feel quite good, especially in the mornings, but as the week goes on, the water loading is going to take its effect. Yesterday, that was the first day of the water loading. Started off the day really well. I sort of front loaded my caffeine because Monday, that's when I work the mornings. I'm working from 5:45 in the morning till 3:15 in the evening. So I really front loaded my caffeine, had about 6 shots of espresso all within the span of 2 hours, and energy was really high. Still ate normal for breakfast, and then as the day went on and I was getting through more of these, my energy just slowly started to wane away, which wasn't ideal, but you know, we got through it. Weight was looking good. Woke up this morning at 79 on the dot, so really no problems in terms of the weight. To be honest with you, I could probably get through this week without water loading, but I don't really want to take any chances. So that's why we're doing this today. Very much the same, slight reduction of carbs today. Instead of my usual 2 slices of sourdough, I only had 1. Gonna limit how much I have for my lunch as well, and also my dinner. If anything, I'm not having barely any carbs for lunch, and then for dinner I'll probably have like 25 to 35 grams of potato. If you don't know, potato is actually, in terms of, it's a carb, right, but in terms of how many carbs it's got per gram, it's pretty low compared to other carbs like brown rice or just normal rice. So it's a pretty safe bet if you want to be reducing your weight, cutting weight, but also seeming like you've got quite a lot of food there. Normal potatoes are probably the ideal food for you to be eating. Training wise, I done a training session yesterday. Just hopped on the bike, the watt bike, for 45 minutes just to get a bit of a sweat on. Nothing daft, pretty much less than zone 2. I was just zone 1 in it the whole time, but it was just to keep the body moving. Today I'm probably going to do a few rounds of pads, then a few grappling rounds, and then probably finish practice a little bit early. Probably only going to get half an hour of a session in. Maybe lift weights for a little bit later on, just light, getting the body moving. That's all the goal is really. And then probably leave it there because the step count's still going to be pretty high. And yeah, apart from that, just a lot of rest. Just being sort of chilling when I'm at home, not really doing too much. Had a little bit on the weekend. We just went to a place called James Street, which is in Brisbane. There's this food festival on there. Went around there, some good music, some like little food stalls as well. Just catching up with some friends. So it's a pretty cool thing to do just before fight week, just to help me relax and sort of take myself away from that fighting mindset, even if it was just for a few hours. Now come Wednesday, tomorrow, I'll probably get 1 more training session in, probably a bit of pads again, and then after that I'm going to stop the training. Thursday, just complete rest day, finishing off the water cut, and then we get weighed in on Friday. Not only are we getting weighed in, but we've got to do ceremonial weigh-in, we've got to do fucking fight gear fitting, and then we've got to do interviews, sound bites and all that type of stuff, which is pretty cool because it's for Eternal, which is Australia's leading MMA organisation. But to be honest with you, I want to just fight. I'm not arsed about that type of stuff, at least not for the time being. If I went professional, for sure, but just as an amateur, you know, I'm used to amateur boxing where you just fight every week and you walk in to a social club and you wait for a couple hours and then next thing you know you're out fighting. So this is a little bit different. Should be used to it by now with MMA, but nah, I just prefer fighting, to be honest with you. One thing that I mentioned in my last fight camp vlog is that I feel like when I do have fights and get into a fight camp, I sort of retreat into myself a little bit. And that's so true. And so one of the things I've been really making sure to do these past few weeks, these past 2 weeks, is just trying to crack on as normal in terms of routine, in terms of productivity, I was slipping a little bit at work, I was slipping a little bit with just my personal life, relationships and development, so I really made sure that I've tried to return to some kind of normality these past few weeks, and it's really been working out for me. One thing that I really want to try and do with this channel is any sort of lessons that I pick up, be that with life or MMA or training, anything like that, I want to try and convey it on here, not because I feel like I'm some sort of authority figure or source of knowledge, but because I feel like if I learn anything that's useful, you know, being someone who's 24 and sort of trying to figure out what he's trying to do in life, if I can pick something up that I find really useful, convey it on the camera, maybe there's someone out there that'll relate to that and maybe learn from that and take it away and apply it to their own life. So that's one of the things I want to do today, talk about some of the lessons that I've picked up these past few weeks that I think are really, really useful, and talk about it to you guys. So let's get on to probably the biggest lesson I've learned within the past few months, which is the social contract. I was taught this by one of my very close friends, and honestly I feel like it's something that's so useful to take away. It might sound a little bit obvious at first. I feel like a lot of us avoid confrontation. Even those of us who might like to think that we're quite good at confrontation, the confrontation I'm talking about is more social confrontation, right? Not necessarily in an aggressive way. It's not like, you know, someone bumps into you in the street and you turn around and be like, what the fuck are you doing? I'm not talking about that type of confrontation. I'm talking about more like confrontation in just everyday life, when you're talking to people, when you're meeting a new person, and you're really trying to, and you're really trying to get across who you are and how you think people should treat you as well. So this is what I've wrote down, because I've got a little notes tab on my phone that I write down all these lessons on. So a social contract, right? People treat you based on what you allow. If someone says or does something you don't like, address it the first time, calmly and respectfully. Don't let it slide, hoping they'll figure it out. Now, what this means is, let's say you're talking to someone, it could be one of your close friends or family members, or just someone randomly, an acquaintance that you've started talking to in the street, and you're talking with them and maybe a topic comes up that you're not the biggest fan of, right? Maybe they're being offensive in some way, and maybe they're touching quite a sensitive subject to you. Now, what a lot of people would do, right, especially with the less serious ones, right? I'm not talking about something necessarily like racism, or, you know, that is one of them, but it could be something as simple as, I don't know, bitching about someone, right? It could be even someone that you don't know, or someone that you do know. But let's say they're bitching. Now, a lot of people, and this is including me in the past, right, would just sort of get a bit awkward and not say anything, and just be like, oh yeah. Let's say they're talking about their work colleague, right, and they're bitching about them a little bit, like, oh, he's such an idiot. Now usually someone would sort of be like, oh right, okay, and just laugh it off or get really awkward. Now what this is trying to say is, if you don't like that behaviour, if you don't like what they're doing, then you've got to address it real quick, right? Because what happens is, if you don't address it, then suddenly that topic of conversation, that person will be like, oh well, it's fine, and maybe the next time you see that person, they'll feel safe to talk about that again. And you can imagine that later down the line, once you've met this first person a few times, that's just going to keep on rolling, that hole's going to get deeper, and then suddenly you're going to be talking about this topic that makes you feel uncomfortable multiple times. Every interaction you have with people teaches them what's acceptable with you. If you never correct it, you're silently agreeing to it. If you speak up once, most reasonable people will respect it, and it will rarely happen again. Again, this is something that may seem like common sense, but for a lot of us it isn't, because that social awkwardness sort of comes up and it makes you really reluctant to say something. So let's take that one about bitching about people, right? This person's bitching about a mutual friend, a colleague, whatever it is. Now, again, most of us would just be awkward, laugh it off. If you want to establish that social contract with this person that we're talking to, maybe halfway through this conversation would say, hey, listen, I would really appreciate if we just didn't talk about X like that, because it makes me feel uncomfortable, whatever. And just with that small saying that might seem like a big thing in your head at the time, that instantly establishes this boundary where now you've told that person that, hey, it's not alright to talk about this subject with me. And I'm not just talking about when you're bitching about someone, I'm talking about whatever subject that might make you feel uncomfortable. If it's a crude joke and you're not someone who's got that sort of crude humour, right? This is one that happened with me. You could be like, hey, I would appreciate if we didn't joke about that. Or, that's not my sense of humour, mate. And again, it might seem awkward, there might be a few seconds of awkwardness after that, but I guess it's just more you holding yourself to your values as well, which is a big virtue in itself, right? It just shows that you're not someone who's privy to just talking about anything, right? You've got your boundaries, you've got your values, you've got your virtues, and if you're actively talking up when you don't agree about something, I feel like that instantly makes you seem a hell of a lot more respectful than the majority of people. I reckon the majority of people wouldn't say anything like that, they wouldn't set their boundaries, and that's why a lot of people get walked all over. And this isn't in a necessarily aggressive way, right? We're not approaching this conversation with aggression or be like, oh, if you say this again, I'm gonna crack you. It's nothing like that. It is just really setting your boundaries of what people can and can't say to you. If someone calls you a dickhead, even if it's in jest, even if it's as a joke, if you don't like being called a dickhead, you gotta tell that person, hey, listen, mate, I'd really appreciate it if you didn't call me a dickhead again. Now, I can seem aggressive, but it's the way that you say it, right? It's the way that you convey that message to that person. Hey mate, I'm not trying to cause any bother, but I really don't like being called that. I would appreciate if you didn't call me that again. Like, that's setting your boundary. And if they do, then that's their fault, right? And that's probably not someone that you'd want to associate yourself with. If somebody doesn't respect your boundaries, if they don't respect that line that you clearly put across from them, then they're not worth your time. And you just can't allow that person to be in your life, because they're the type of person that will continuously push them boundaries. And if they're pushing them boundaries of things like that, you can only imagine how much they push the boundaries when you're talking about something that's a little bit more serious, or doing something that's a little bit more serious. They don't respect you, and that's a big thing. If you spend time with someone that doesn't respect you, then it's not going to end well for you. That relationship is not one that you want to be in. Again, this might seem like common sense, and it's something that everybody knows what boundaries are. And if you'd ask the average person, they'd probably say that they do have boundaries that they don't let people cross. But the reality is, a lot of people don't do this, and a lot of people out there, and I was one of these that are included, are the types of person that, especially in a group setting, if there's a topic that you're talking about that makes you uncomfortable, or even on a one-on-one scenario, you won't be the type of person to speak up. It especially happens in my job. I'm a personal trainer. I see a lot of different people with a lot of different views, and get into a lot of conversations. Now, a lot of the time with these conversations, I'm pretty good at setting boundaries, but there could be that one person that you get in that goes completely off script and says something just unhinged or just completely out there, and it can throw you back at the start. It can really make you be like, oh fucking hell. Now, sometimes you can leave it, because it takes that sort of maturity to realise, alright, is this something that's going to come up again? And if it isn't, if you know that it's not going to come up again, if you know that you can sort of avoid that conversation again, maybe it is better just to shut your mouth and not say anything. You don't need to impose your will every single time. But if it's happened a few times, it's happening in one conversation, then a few days later happens in another conversation with the same person, I think that's the time where you bring it up, and that's the time where you nip it in the bud. Doing it straight away, if that person only says it once, can be a bit, but if you've noticed the behaviour in someone more than once, twice, 3 times, that's when you should nip it in the bud. You know, if someone does something once, you can forgive it. If they do something twice, then you know something's going on. Now, since this lesson got spoken to me out loud, I've definitely been applying it more times in my life, and it's definitely made a huge difference just in them small social interactions. And one of these interactions actually ended up with someone saying that, "Hey mate, you're really wise for your age." And that's not me trying to come off as pretentious. I'm just trying to show you the result of applying these lessons that you learn, right? If you don't apply these lessons, then you're never going to get better. Someone, I won't even explain the situation, but I was in a situation where I was talking to someone. They came up with a topic that I didn't particularly want to talk about, and I told them there, I went, "Hey, listen, I honestly think that this topic of conversation isn't one that you should be having with me. I think it's one that you should be having with another person." And he sort of just looked at me and he went, "Mate, you're really wise for your age." And that was that. When I know for a fact that that topic of conversation is never going to come up again, because I set that boundary of saying, "Listen, I'm the type of person that doesn't talk about this. I'm the type of person that you don't do this to." And the aftermath is he thinks I'm wise. Am I wise? No. I might be a little bit mature, but I'm definitely not wise. But that's the way I come across, and that's exactly the point of this, right? You come across to someone, the way you come across to someone is based on your boundaries that you set, the conversations that you have, and the things that you allow them to think about you. Yeah. Now we can take that to the extreme. I think you can be very fake when it comes to this type of stuff. You can come across as somebody that you're not, and unfortunately this works for a lot of people. And then a lot of, I guess, scam artists and charlatans can seem a lot smarter than what they actually are. But if you are someone that has values and hold yourself to them values, then this is the best way to do that. Now that I think about it, this could be a great way to spot fake people. How many times have you been in a conversation with someone, quite a deep conversation, where they're talking about things that they care about and they're passionate about, or topics of conversation that they don't necessarily like to talk about or enjoy, and then suddenly you're in a group setting and this person just completely crumbles under the first sign of pressure, and this forbidden topic comes up and then they start talking about and joking around with it just like anybody else. That's someone who doesn't hold themselves to their own values and their own beliefs. And I think as soon as you hear this lesson, you can look at these types of people and you can suss them out, and you know exactly what kind of person they are by the end of it. So that's pretty cool. So just to finish the video, I'm going to read this full page of notes I've written down about the social contract. You can copy it, you can put it in your own words, do whatever, but these are just my words that I put out. So the social contract. People treat you based on what you allow. If someone says or does something that you don't like, address it the first time. Do it calmly, do it respectfully, and don't let it slide hoping that they'll figure it out. Every interaction teaches people what's acceptable with you. If you never correct them, then you're silently agreeing to whatever it is they're saying. If you speak up once, most reasonable people will respect it, and it will rarely happen again. Don't be aggressive, don't try and make a scene, be clear and respectable. Some examples: "Hey mate, I'd really appreciate if you didn't call me that. I would rather that we didn't joke about X or that. I would respect it if you didn't speak to me like that." And then just to close off, setting small boundaries will prevent bigger problems later on. Yeah, again, this isn't a video of me trying to be pretentious. It's just some value that I thought I'd talk about. Become very philosophical in this fight camp. I like it. Long may it continue. Alright, see you guys.